We will start our session in just 5 minutes, okay? Hello, everyone. Good evening to all of you. On behalf of Paryavarnam Society, myself Sushmita is your host today, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about World Wildlife Day. The theme of World Wildlife Day 2021 is Forest and Livelihoods, Sustaining People and Planet. Allow me to introduce something about forest and how they are sustaining our planet. Okay, as we all know, thousands of people around the world depend directly on forest for their income and subsistence, including many people living in extreme poverty. Forest resources contribute to the natural environment on which food production depends and absorbs around 15% of greenhouse gas emissions. They also protect vital watersheds and reduce the risk of natural disasters like floods, landslides, etc. Okay, let's move forward. We will start with our first guest speaker, Dr. Venkatesh Datta sir. Dr. Datta completed his PhD from Tevi School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, and his and he also completed his postdoc training from University of Maryland, USA. His areas of research are water resource management, environmental management of modeling, urban and regional planning, environmental impact assessment, and environmental policy. Dr. Datta has 28 international publications, 9 national publications, and 10 book chapters. Also, he has been awarded by many awards like Springer Society Award, Nadi Mitra Samman during Environment and River Festival 2015 by Global Greens India. And the list is continued to many awards. So it's really great honor to have you here. Dr. Datta, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sushmita. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
My screen is visible? Or
yes, sir. Screen is visible.
Let me share my screen first. Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you so much for this nice introduction. I feel quite privileged to speak today on a topic which is very close to my heart. And today we celebrate this World Wildlife Day, which is not a very old kind of celebration. We started only in 2014, and today we celebrate for the eighth year, that is 2021. Although the background was made much before, if I remember correctly, it was only during 1972 or 73, there was UN Convention on banning the illegal trade on wildlife products. And there was this requirement of, giving a strong message to all the signatories and the member countries to protect their own wildlife, flora and fauna. But it was only in December 2013 that the UN Assembly decided to have a International Day for Protection of Wildlife. And we celebrate on 3rd of March every year. And every year there is a theme, and this year the theme is on forest and livelihoods. If I'm correct, it was just told by Sushmita, forest and livelihoods, right? So, it is quite disheartening. I'm starting on a disheartening note that we have lost over 60% of wildlife since 1970. And I may be underestimating, because there are different figures, and there's one study which talks about the loss of species in different habitat, such as marine and freshwater habitat and terrestrial habitats. So there is this figure of loss of species which goes to about 84% in freshwater habitat. That means between 1970 to 2014, we have lost about 86% of species from the freshwater habitat. And majorly it was due to the destruction of their habitat, whether it is deforestation or converting the areas into deserts because of massive water exploitation or water drainage or water diversions, canals and irrigation channels which divert a lot of water from these streams and rivers. They also cause a lot of habitat fragmentation and habitat destructions. So the focus has been lately on plantation. People think that by planting we can create habitat, but they are mistaken. Actually, the habitat is a very complex sort of setup. It is not something which is very static. It is always dynamic, and to create a natural habitat, you require decades, not just 1 year of plantation, and that too mostly monoculture. What I have been observing in the various schemes and projects, that we resort to plantation of certain species which may not be the native species of that area, or which may not be dominant species. It may be a minor species, but we sort of replace the entire forest community or entire habitat with 1 or 2 species, and we destroy the entire habitat. So I am saying here with this platform that all that is needed right now to restore the ecosystem is protection. Whatever we have today, if we are able to protect it, just like we maintain a sanctum sanctorum status, like no change of land use allowed, no change of strict regulatory regimes for their protection, and not just plantations, because we have been also creating unhealthy forests. You would be shocked why I'm using these terms, that plantation could be not always good. Sometimes you create a chain of invasive species. And that is what happened in Delhi. If you go to Aravalli Hills, which is the extension of the entire Agra Ridge coming to Delhi area, Faridabad and Ballabgarh, and Delhi also, the species Prosopis zulifera, the jungly baboon, that has actually destroyed the native species, and it is now a dominant species, and it doesn't allow the other plants to come very easy. And you have to just do a lot of homework to grow a forest. Am I audible and clear? I need some feedback.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you want to speak in
Yes, sir,
English?
you are audible.
Hindi is better.
Yes, sir.
English is okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I'm coming back to this news clip, it is from, I think, 2012. We did one river expedition of Gomte River, which is our own river, which is like, it is a tributary of Ganges from Pilibhit to Jaunpur. There is a stretch of about 945 kilometers. And we traveled along the river for 8 days. We didn't stay in any of the hotels. We didn't, went to a resort. We just stayed close to the river banks. And the idea was to document the biodiversity, the forest corridors, the habitat types, the water quality, the kind of biodiversity. But I was quite shocked and surprised that there was no record of the river for initial 65 kilometers. And since I was a newcomer and I didn't go for expedition before, this was the first expedition of the river. So I was quite shocked and surprised, just like a young researcher, when you go into the field and you see that there's no river on land revenue records and people are doing farming and the river is non-existent. And the interesting part of the story was that the government was not aware of this sort of massive encroachment on the river channel itself. And the story there was one reporter in my team and he wrote one story, and I was looking for the nexus between the Lekpal, the Tehsildar, and the SDM's which are actually the custodians of the land, they sort of do lot of land business. They have large land pool, and they allocate the land to farmers, or just by chakbandi, or there's a process of land allocation, or just by land grabbing. Going and asking them why you are grabbing the land. Now, why I'm putting this slide, when we found that when we talked to the revenue department and the DM, they were also shocked, and everybody came into action. And even there was an aerial survey by the cabinet secretary the very next day, when I wrote that there is no river for 65 kilometers. And one river which was tributary to this river is called Katina River. Katina River is a river which gets water from the ground, the spring-fed river. Even the Gomte River is a spring-fed, groundwater-fed river. It doesn't get any drop of water from the the snow melt. So it is not a Himalayan river. It is a alluvial river which gets water from the ground basically and the rainfall. And there were many tributaries which were bringing fresh water to this river. And Katina River, you would still see tigers coming to Katina River banks and having water. It is a source of water for their cubs, for their entire family. Many carnivores and other herbivores, they come and drink water from Katina River, which is a tributary of Gomte River. But once you fragment the habitat, what happens? The entire the species which used to occupy the middle of the habitat range, they were inside the core of the habitat. Now they are on the periphery. They are on the mercy of these farmers, and there are a lot of stray incidences of tigers coming to human population and attacking them, because once their habitat is lost, they come for foraging, and their prey base, if you fragment the forest, their prey base will also decline. So the entire river and forest corridors are connected. The story on river is also a story on forest, because if you lose the forest, you lose the river, or if you lose the river, you lose the forest. And we do not see this connection, sadly. People don't think that the streams are actually coming from forest. If you go to Narmada River, or if you go to Ken and Betwa river systems, the entire forests have evolved over millions of years of evolution. It is not just like few years or few thousand of years. The forest types have evolved. On what natural forest, what pattern of natural forest you see the dominance, the evenness, the kind of different species dispersal pattern that you see. It is a year of nature, years of millions of years of nature's work, the kind of tapestry, the kind of heterogeneity that you see today. So even the years back, I wrote a story which came in this Dainik Jagran on editorial page. कहानियों में तब्दील हो गए पनघट. अब आपको गांव भर का पनघट अब किसको याद है? किसी को याद है कि हर गांव में कितने तालाब होते थे? हर गांव में करीब 12-13 तालाब होते थे. एक तालाब में मवेशी पानी पीता था. एक तालाब से हम लोग पानी पीने का वो पानी इकट्ठा करते थे, और उसी तालाब का पानी जैसे जैसे सूखता था तो उसके सिल्ट से हम लोग कुम्हार लोग मिट्टी के बर्तन बनाते थे, और उसी मिट्टी को हम लोग अपने घरों को नीपते थे, और उससे हम पूरा का पूरा सिस्टम बना था. But now what happened? The entire system of connected lakes, wetlands, and the forest was lost. And this Panghat is just a symptom that the story is just, it is in our memory. And the new generation which is going these connected waterscapes or the water landscapes. Now, just a few years back, our scholars, our PhD scholars, they are doing wonderful work on documenting, some of the stressed ecosystems, why the ecosystem behaves in a stressed manner. There are many forcing functions, there are many pressure functions, there are many response functions. And once you change these dynamics, the pressure, impact, response functions, the entire natural in situ habitat would also change. and it depends upon the researchers like you people document those changing dynamics. For example, if a lake is getting polluted, to what happens to their aquatic, the phyto population, the macrophytes? What happens to their amphibians, reptiles nearby? The urban stressed catchments. So their entire flora and fauna, they cannot talk to us, but there are different signals to know that they are in stress. I can give you one example. There was one study done in Australia where they wanted to know the impact of the impact of floodlights on behavior of. You have this high mast lights like riverfront, and there are lights, street lights, and highlight areas which are not quite good for. Just a second.
Sure, sir.
Hello. नमस्कार, मैं एक मीटिंग में हूँ, मैं आपको कॉल कर सकता हूँ? अच्छा. So can you call after or I'll call you back. Okay, thank you. So we wanted to study the impact of artificial lights on the foraging behavior of birds, and the birds were in stress. We want to see our signboard glaring, our street very clean and with all the lights, even in forest areas, even in river banks. But what happens to these poor fellows, butterflies, birds, and bats? They are in stress conditions, and once you take their blood samples, there are many stress hormones. So the study, I don't remember exactly, but the conclusion was that the birds were in stressed conditions, and because of this, the extra stress, there were many sort of stress hormones were coming into their blood, and they were having difficulties in foraging, and their even offsprings were not in good health. So this sort of dynamics that you encounter. Now, this picture is of Kukrail River. I can give you some example from Lucknow, where we are situated right now. Lucknow was a very forested area. You can think of a scenario pre-British era, like Nawabo ka time, aap sochiye. You go back 250 years in historical times, when the capital of Awadh was, Uttar Pradesh was not there, it was Awadh. Awadh was the entire province, United Awadh province, and the capital was in Faizabad. But this capital was shifted from Faizabad to Lucknow. And this area was so heavily forested with undulating terrain that the soldiers had a tough time coming from Delhi to this Awadh area. They document that the entire area is heavily forested, guarded, and there are many rivers and rivulets, and the land is not uniform. It is very difficult to invade. When there was an invasion of Mughals in Delhi, they had a tough time coming to Lucknow area, Awadh area, because of the forest and the undulating terrains of land. But now what happened? After this process of urbanization, when the Nawabi culture was over and the Lucknow became an administrative city, the capital was shifted from Madgaon to cantonment, and even the capital was not there in this Vidhan Sabha Marg. It was in Madgaon, which is the northern side, because Madgaon was free from floods. The Nawabs knew that this terrace was quite good for settlement. The first settlement in Lucknow came around the northern side of Lucknow in Madgaon area, and there was a huge forest, deep, dense forest called this forest called Musabag forest. Musabag forest and Kukrail forest and cantonment forest. You imagine it was just connected with each other. There was no fragmentation. Musabag area and this Kukrail forest, where you have Scorpio Club and the Kukrail Reserve Forest, and this cantonment forest patch. These are three lungs of Lucknow. They were all connected, and if you have to give somebody punishment, you send them to Musawag forest. Musawag forest was sort of exile for those who were not, obeying the commands of the British troops. So they were sent to Musawag. Even there are documents of tigers and leopards in Musawag area. There used to be animal fights in Lucknow. And I met one lady just a few days back, and she was giving me account of the deer population just where Hotel Taj is located. When you go to Hotel Taj, when there was no banda embankment on both sides of Gomte River, then the deer was roaming freely. But what happened? Everybody wants to settle close to river, and once you come to the river, you first thing that you do, you destroy the forest. You destroy the natural terrain of the river, so that you want to come close to the river. Now, this channel that you see on the picture used to be a river, but sadly we say it is a nala. Now, beautiful landscape river systems with natural islands of vegetation, but now these islands of vegetation, because of water quality decline, because of dumping of solid waste, they are all replaced by 3 or 4 species. One is the castor Ricinus communis, and then your Prosopis dolifera, and some of the weeds and the shrubs. But what is astonishing in this picture is this dump of thermocols that even the city dwellers are not aware. When we saw from an aerial picture, from a drone camera, then I was wondering, what is this? What kind of waste is this? But when I went close to this channel, it was all thermocol waste dumped by somebody. And this is what happens when this, imagine, in British time, in Mughal time, this was a hot spot of all the deer and, sambar and, the native birds and reptiles and amphibians. The paradise for all those refugees. But now it is in a shamble. It is in a very bad shape. Now what happens? Once you destroy the habitat, the core, imagine this. On the left hand side you have this Musabag and Jankipuram Kukrel area and this cantonment area. But now the ring road came, and this Shahid Path came, and this cantonment road came, and this new colonies came. So these are all fragmentations factor which destroyed the habitat, and these all fringe species became very vulnerable to extinction, and they went in search of other habitat. And because of the displacement of the native flora, even the refuse was also very stressed. And when we make road, even there is no sense that you also need sort of bypass, or what you call the elevated corridor for free migration, for free kind of travel of all those species. They go from one zone to another zone for foraging, for searching their prey. But once there is a busy road or there is a railway track, what happens? The animals are in very stressed situation, and this is routinely ignored in our planning system. Now, this is the picture that I wanted to show you. The Kukrel forest, how it was, destroyed and fragmented into west and east forest. Now there is just tiny patch, but still it is like being saved because it is a reserve forest. Had it been other forest area, it would have been lost by the urban and the industries and solid waste dumping. But still, many areas are also fringe areas, are also in stress situation. And this Kukrel River inside the forest is very different. And once it crosses, it comes out from the Kukrel area, it is very different. It is just like a filthy drain. So I was referring to this WWF Living Planet report of 2020, and it has ranked the threats, the eminent threats on biodiversity, and the biggest threat, 50% of the threat is coming from of land use, whether it is use or land use, whether it is logging or unsustainable agriculture or housing development or mining, and many stress factors are there which are causing displacement of the species and which are causing the habitat destruction, habitat fragmentation. And there are other factors also like pollution, the nitrates and phosphates which are coming to the freshwater ecosystem and changing the entire dynamics of the marine freshwater ecosystem. Even the sea, which is a recipient of the flux of entire sediments from the river systems. The acidity is being changed, the alkalinity is being changed, the coral reefs are being bleached because of the acidity, and the increase in temperature is also causing the loss of the oxygen and the stress of the marine habitat. So the Living Planet report says that between 1970 and 2016, we have the entire population of vertebrates fell by 68% on an average. 68% decline between 1970 and 2016, which is a huge number. So I can give you a lot of examples, but I don't want to go into these numbers. You can always search on Google and you get these data sets which are very, very shocking and surprising, because it shows that the Latin America and Caribbean, it is experiencing about 94% decline of biodiversity in just about 46 years. So less than 50 years, you have 94% of species decline. I can't believe, but this report is quite credible. What happens in Africa? 65%, Asia Pacific, 45% of species biodiversity lost between 1970 and 2016. But I work on a micro system, and when I relate to this macro data, there might be some data errors, but it is showing the larger reality. There might be plus minus, error in estimation. But when I see these micro details, I can give you a few examples. This graph is showing what are the major 5 threats, that is habitat change, climate change, introduction of invasive species, overexploitation, and population, especially the nitrogen flux and phosphorus flux coming to the natural habitat. And these are, on the left-hand side, you have the ecosystem, the forest and the dry land, the inland, the coastal, marine, island, and the mountain and the polar. And you see how the drivers are changing. The increasing, arrow shows the impact is increasing, and a rapid increase. The straight horizontal vertical arrow, which shows that the very rapid increase of the impact. Right. So this is a picture that I took from internet. It is showing the nitrogen deposition from atmosphere. Very interesting area. You see the entire India, the Indo-Gangetic plain, the Ganga alluvial plain, it is in red. That is about 2,000 to 5,000 milligram of nitrogen is being deposited every year in 1 square meter of the area. That much of nitrogen flux. From where it is coming, and that too in 1990. I couldn't get the latest data, but what I was getting to know that this sort of emerging pollutions, which was not there before, but when we started this coal burning and fossil fuel burning, a lot of oxides of sulfur and nitrogen, and even got this over the entire Indo-Gangetic plain, which is very clear even in the NASA satellite picture, that you will see that there's a big plume over Indo-Gangetic plain, and that is also affecting the wildlife in some way or the other. Now there's this forest fire. Forest fire is becoming so imminent, this Australian bushfire and recent Uttarakhand fire. Every year there are hundreds and thousands of fires. In fact, in 2016, even just in summer, it is a recorded data, there were more than 20,000 fires in India, over the entire Indian region. And these forest fires destroyed the native insects, birds, butterflies, even herbivores and small carnivores, because some of them would migrate to safer areas, but some of them will not be able to migrate so quickly, and they do not have that, immediate capacity to migrate to safer areas. And in this way, you lose the entire chunk of biomes and, the native flora and fauna. Now, let me give you some examples from a few recent stories that I went to personally see and examine. The one example I'll give you about this, the doubling of the railway tracks, which is happening inside the Western Ghats. Western Ghat is one of the biodiversity hotspots of the entire world. It is ranging across an area of 140,000 square kilometer along the western coast, like in Kerala, Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. But very, surprisingly, Ministry of Environment and Forest granted approval under the Forest Conservation Act for the diversion of 140 hectares of protected Western Ghats. Now, this interesting story just came 3 days back, and there is an estimate that there will be 50,000 trees cut. But what was even very depressing, that this project was cleared at 2 levels. First, it was cleared by the State Wildlife Board and the National Board of Wildlife, and even the Forest Department gave clearance. So, being an academician, I really get shocked and surprised that why this kind of project gets approval at the first place. Whether there is too much of pressure from the government, and you cannot create forest of Western Ghats. Even if you plant 1 million trees, it will not be a forest again, because there is a difference between natural forest and man-made forest. Even we are creating Miyawaki forest or all sorts of forests, you cannot create a natural forest, right? Let the nature heal. I saw one example of natural forest creation outskirts of Bangalore, where the owner had a huge piece of land ranging into 500 acres in a hilly terrain, and the owners, which were like 3 people who came from US and bought a big chunk of land, but there were elephants and grazing. But what they did solar fencing of that area and forgot for 10 years. They didn't come for 10 years, but there was a natural forest. There was no grazing. Grazing was stopped because they just put a barricading, and they allowed nature to heal and just resurrect, and there was a natural forest. So this sort of development project is coming. There's another example of cane bedpalling. I had gone to this Panna Tiger Reserve last year, just before this Corona thing came, and I was very depressed when I went to see this core of the Panna Tiger Reserve, which would be submerged once the cane bedpalling comes. What is the cost and what is the benefit? The project proponent or the project developers, they give a very very shoddy picture, or they give a very lucrative picture of the benefits. They would say that once you link these 2 rivers, then this much area would be irrigated, this much farmers would get water. But remember, this Bundelkhand region was designed to be arid. Nature designed Bundelkhand to be arid, and let it be arid. Please do not bring water to arid area. Let it be arid. Let it be known for bowl of pulses. People used to grow millets, jowar, ragi, flax, sunflower, and peas and tomatoes. But why you are bringing water? They would start cultivating paddy and wheat. Again, you will destroy the entire area by this paddy and wheat cultivation. And what we are doing, 18 lakh trees, can you imagine? 18 lakh plus trees would be felled, and there would be loss of about more than 6,000 hectares of land, and that too, majority of it from Panna Tiger River. Now the reservoir which is coming, which is planned, which will eat about 5,803 hectares inside the Panna Tiger Reserve, and it is not only known for tiger but also for vultures. There are sites for all these 6 to 7 species of vultures. They come there, they do their nesting, breeding, and this site of dam would inundate, would just flood the entire area. This picture that you see is a temple priest who is living inside this core of the Panna Tiger Reserve, where nobody could go, even in Shivratri. It's a Shiva temple. What you see inside this rock, big piece of rock, it has many diamond. If I start, breaking this piece of rock, I'll get many diamond. But inside this cave, there is a Shiva lingam, and the water drops on the lingam. And this temple priest, who is a tribe, is staying in that area, and he stays inside this cave. Otherwise, the tigers and the bears come every day, and he listens to the roaring sound of the tigers. But in this temple, normally people cannot go. It is just very deep inside the forest. Only people like me or the scientists or some visitors who would go to do survey, or some forest officials, and they would give some rations. Or during Shivratri, some few tribes would go there once in a year. But this area may be also submerged, and this person is not knowing that this abode would be submerged. So I'm showing you this picture to know that the forest and community and livelihood connections, how it is being connected. He's staying in this area for quite some time, and when I explained about this Civet link, he said that this project is not good because the entire forest would be submerged, and he's a friend to those tigers and bears. He's not an enemy. He's living in harmony. Now, the third example is this Shivalik Elephant Reserve of expansion of Jolly Grant Airport at Dehradun. Again, 10,000 trees to be cut, and the clearance is already given. Now, why we are having this kind of project? National waterways. Now, do you know that there is a turtle sanctuary in Varanasi spanning over 7 kilometers? Varanasi Kachwa Sanctuary, and this was delisted by the State Wildlife Board, and then because national waterways would come, we want to bring ships from Haldia to Varanasi. Ganga National Waterways. What happens to dolphins? Their acoustic system would be destroyed because they depend upon the sound systems. And this turtle sanctuary, around 40,000 turtles were released. I think when the Ganga Action Plan Phase 1 was launched between 1989 to 2010, about 40,000 turtles were released in this sanctuary, in this 7-kilometer area between Rampur and in core of Varanasi. So that 7-kilometer span, the idea was that these turtles would eat the dead bodies, and sometimes people just throw half-burned bodies. And turtles used to clean those areas very well. But to release, there was this sort of theory that these turtles are destroying the riverbank. And these poor creatures were blamed, and the project was made that we should have somewhere else. But the idea was not this riverbank destabilization, but idea was to have this national waterways. So I don't want to take much of your time. This is my last slide, and I just want to say that we have to think of these smaller micro details when we do study. And also I call all these forest officials and academicians to think again before giving this approval for such devastating projects, which may cause the entire replacement, cessation of the biome, the eco-fragile areas. In Betwa area, the Panna Tiger Reserve, which is a hilltop mountain, wonderful, even older than the Himalayan mountains. If you see the tabletop mountain, the semi-arid area, the grassland ecosystem, which is like if you go in summer arid area, it will look like a sort of water devoid desert, but it is a mecca for all the tigers. Tigers love that sort of habitat, and there are prey base. But for instance, this is being given for this cane calling that we will take all those tigers into some other areas, but where is the prey base? Will you introduce some cattle to eat them? Their entire prey habitat will be destroyed. So we are not even thinking of their prey base. Right? So I would stop here, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your lovely and informative talk. So here are some questions for you.
Right.
The first question is from Nico Nero. He's somewhere, I guess, abroad. He's from abroad. Okay, so his question is, we all know that biodiversity plays a vital role in all nations. Is there any regulation or law to prohibit such businesses to buy or invade these lands?
These lands?
Yes, sir.
See, there are many regulations to put restrictions on the illegal trade of wildlife products, including forest products. Like there is a Forest Conservation Act, there is a Wildlife Protection Act. But to protect these areas, like we have system of national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. Then these protected areas, there are different code of rules for taking non-timber produce or timber produce. So depending upon their regulation and the areas, the laws are strictly enforced, but the implementation is poor. Regulation is there, laws are there, but how do you implement it? Right, it is the problem. So how do you regulate the loss of the floodplain vegetation? How do you stop people from encroaching the floodplain vegetation or the wetland? There are laws, but actually it is being not implemented in letter and spirit. There are a lot of loopholes where people just sort of mislead the policymakers, and even the policymakers and the legal persons, they always find some way out for the culprits. The legal systems, they are not so strict. I don't find any rigorous case of wildlife crime. They are released after a few years of imprisonment. Right?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Moving forward, our next speaker is Mr. Apurv Gupta. He is working as biologist at Dudhwa National Park and Tiger Reserve. He made databases of grasses and trees of Dudhwa National Park. He also performed various activities like camera trapping, GIS mapping, patrolling, etc. Currently, he is working on tiger operation. Mr. Apurv Gupta, over to you, sir.
Hello. Okay.
Hello, sir.
That was a fine presentation by Venkatesh, sir. I noted everything down. I will study afterwards, man. Okay. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Okay. Wait. Okay, can you see the slides?
No, sir.
Wait.
So go to the option present now.
Yeah. Is it now then?
Sir, then your screen will start sharing.
Okay. Okay. How does this work? Can you see it now?
No, sir.
Wait. And sorry everyone, this is the first time I'm giving a presentation, so let me take my time. Okay.
Okay, sir, sure.
So how do we present? Wait.
So there is an option of present now. You can click there.
Present now, it shows three
Yes, sir.
options: your entire screen, a window,
So go
a
to
tab.
the entire screen.
Okay.
So select that screen first, then go to the entire screen option.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. It's
Okay.
visible now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Forest and livelihood. Overview. Our Earth is a very active planet. We all are beings. We are constantly interacting with each other for the limited energy sources. And there is competition on various levels, which can be observed around as natural selection. Okay. So the ones that can't complete have extend, or maybe they will extend. And the one who gives a tough competition evolves. So what's happening now is the majority of Earth is occupied by natural resources, which are forest. according to the governments around the globe. Human beings have a large population. We have a large population of 7.8 billions. We are spread across the world, which has affected the natural selection process, as we as a humans are responsible for threatening the existence of various species, and some have already been extinct. Majority of these natural resources, which are forests, fall around human habitats, which are usually rural communities living away from the cities. As for now, I'm in Kishanpur, and Kishanpur is a wildlife sanctuary, and the community living here is Kishanpur village. They're surrounded inside the national park area, and they don't have access to electricity, clean water, and they are treated as like trespassers in their own home. Okay. So why is that? Due to the industrial revolution, the demand of natural resources increased as a raw material for various industries. Raw material is forest. And this demand increased after the industrial revolution. Complex structure of communities developed, creating big cities, which were dependent on each other through trade and competing among themselves. So these cities developed with communities, various communities interlinked and formed cities, and they were dependent on each other through trade. They were having trade and they were competing among themselves. Communities around forest remain dependent on agriculture and forest for their livelihood. They still do. The communities which live around forests are dependent on agriculture. And what happens is the agricultural fields which are situated near the forest are constantly invaded by cheetal, that's spotted deer, hog deer, and in this case, swamp deer too. So they get frustrated. Their source of income is in danger. So this is the situation of conflict. They get frustrated. Okay, so they do different things. So we need to support these communities so that they become so independent. They do not come to forest for resources. Like they come to the forest for fuel wood because they do not have LPG stoves and all. So they take the fuel wood and use it for cooking. And they go to buffer and sometimes they come to the forest. And this creates conflict because in this area we have 5 tigers and 3 leopards. And this is not a safe area for humans to like roam around. So this needs to be addressed. Cool. After the establishment of protected areas, communities living around or inside the protected area were suddenly treated as refugees on their own land. As I've said, they are given no compensation and laws were established to keep them away from the forest. Because previously what happened was that they used to live in harmony with the forest. And nowadays the restriction is so much that they rarely get chance to enter inside the forest. So they're not as acquaintance to the forest as they were before. So there is a problem. Issues we have here. Living near a protected area is challenging for the underdeveloped communities living in and around protected areas. They have been using fuel wood from forest to cook food and pasture lands around the forest from a long time and are dependent on them. So like I said, they are dependent on the fuel wood. They take their cattle to areas around the forest for grazing. Although all of their activities are not damaging for the forest, but a growing population. Here comes the growing population. Population is growing, and then they put a lot of stress on these forest areas, these growing communities. Communities depending on agriculture as the main source of food and income are affected by the movement of wild animals from the forest to agricultural fields. Why this happens? This happens because forest has grasslands, and these grasslands are invaded by the outsiders, like the people living outside the forest. They come and they graze, and fodder like this grasses, the palatable grasses. There are 2 types of grasses. One is palatable and the other is non-palatable. So spotted deers, hog deers, and swam deer. There are 5 types of deer here, currently where I am now. So there are 5 types of deers like cheetal, spotted deer, hog deer, barking deer, swam deer, and sambar. These different types of deer have different diet on different type of grasses. The palatable grasses here are Apluda motica, uh, Dicanthium, and doob. There are 3 or 4 palatable grasses, and the total count of grasses is around 40. The other are mostly coarse grasses. They have occupied the area because soft grasses they diminish rapidly, and the coarse grasses which animals do not eat, they take their place and dominate the landscape. So what happens? Animals move outside the protected area. So this creates conflict. Okay, where were we? Okay. They have been using fuel wood for forest to cook food and pasture. Yeah, that I was talking about. Although all of their activities are not damaging, this also I have talked about. Communities depending upon agriculture as the main source of food and income are affected by the movement of wild animals from forest to agricultural fields. They're affected. Like their income is affected, so they are affected a lot. Conflict is in animal damage, damaging the crop, attack on livestock by predators, put a lot of stress on these communities because when deers will move, predator will also move. Let it be tiger or leopard, they will move. There are conflict conditions. Like I am here in Dudwa, we have Pilibhit, and both the areas are currently there are conflicts going on, and we all are working there. In conflict conditions, tigers are sometimes out of the forest. Okay. Conditions like these force them to indulge in malpractices like poaching. Why do poaching happens? Because animal comes, damages your crops. You don't have any income. They start like trade, encroaching the forest land. They become frustrated. They do these things. So that's why we need to uplift the communities living around the protected areas. So we have to give them proper education, and we have to establish a strong base for them to so that they are not dependent on these things. Okay, so what should we do? Upliftment of rural communities near protected areas is very important for the protection of forest itself. Because if people that are living around the protected areas, they are happy, they are satisfied, they don't have any issue from the forest, then they will be happy to protect the forest because it's their land. Government bodies solely cannot help in improving the conditions, as from long time government has been practicing to uplift these tribals. But it's not only the government that can do it. A joint forest management approach is necessary where government bodies along with NGOs and communities work together for the betterment of forest and people. So joint forest management, that's the answer. So it is a body where government and NGOs along with communities, they work together for the betterment of forest and people. So there are schemes like WWF has done what they have done in Dudwa. WWF India, with the support of Seed Division, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, has worked with Tharu communities. Tharu communities are tribal communities living in Dudwa, northern Dudwa region. People from Tharu communities have traditional skill of weaving locally available grasses to make baskets. They do it. You can go to Sunday towards the Chandan Chowki. In Dudwa, we have 2 national highways. One goes to Warifanta. Inside the national park, we have one highway there, and to Chandan Chowki. So when you go there on Sunday morning, you can see these people weaving baskets. So what WWF has done, they have helped them upgrade their weaving skills to weaving durries. Durries are mats. They provided training on skill development, design development, quality control, as well as standardization and costing. They even settle that with the market. Like you can online buy this thing. Okay, so these weavers, majority of which are women, have now formed a Tharu Hatkarga Garelu Udyog. I've been there, and they're weaving, they're making slippers, casseroles, caps, basket, not just basket. They're making so many things with this, and they're both durable and they're very easily available. And I personally have some in my home. Okay, so people around forest, along with proper training and education, can make a change from damaging the forest to recreating and protecting resources and beings. There are various success stories where livelihood or people around forest change with the increased income as a community while providing protection to the forest. Like there are many scenarios like this. They use this mahua for medicinal purposes. Like we have Terminalia chabula and Terminalia ballerica trees. In these areas, they are used for their medicinal purposes. And we have amla here, and we have many forest resources which can be used for medicinal purposes. So what we can do is we can set up little fields outside protected areas where we can help these communities grow medicines. That's my personal idea. Okay, support like this, like WWF has done, has helped communities to establish themselves financially. Various organizations have worked and have been working. WTI has been working for a long time for conflict mitigation in areas around protected areas. They have PRT communities in villages which help overcome a man-animal conflict situation. Like I told you before, the conflict situation where a leopard enters a field, agricultural field, tiger enters, or a sloth bear comes, or an elephant comes. So what they do, they have PRT communities inside various villages. They are village people who have taken training from WTI to what to do in a conflict situation. What they do is they call the rapid response unit. WTI has a rapid response unit, they call them, and they send a biologist, a veterinary, and 2 or 3 support guys to deal the conflict. And in Pilibhit, they have dealt with so many conflicts, and the work is very fine. Okay. Various conflict mitigation measures are taken by various organizations. Like to keep elephants away, WWF has been trying to establish beehives around the area of people living near the forest. So what bees do are, elephants when they come, they are easily scared away by the bees. So no conflict situation. Usually what happens is an elephant enters the field and crops are gone. Okay, chili farming on boundaries. Chilies also keep elephants away, and I've heard about AIDERS, AIDERS. It's an alarm system developed where what it does is there is infrared detection system. When an animal comes too close to a fence, lights will be on and there will be a message sent to your phone through GSM, and alarms will be on and lights will be on. Animals will be scared away. Or if it still comes, you will have the message. You can be prepared. Automatic solar lights. Automatic solar lights are around these farms. They are automatically turned on when there is movement. Okay, I don't have nothing much to say. Any questions?
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir, there are 2 or 3 questions. I'm asking one by one. So first is it still possible that humans and nature coexist, or human needs to step back?
Humans and nature can coexist. We don't need to take a step back. What we need to do is stand still and just see what's happening, understand it. We have to first understand and then take a step ahead. Is it clear?
Okay, sir, thank you so much. So next question is, how can we protect wild animals from climate change? Because climate change is rising day by day.
Yeah. As an individual, we cannot change anything. We have to observe this as a species. We all are Homo sapiens, and we should have a perspective that, first of all, we have to have a perspective to Earth as if it's one. It's not divided up within countries. It's one. We have only one planet. Okay, so we all countries, everyone needs to be united on this. Otherwise, it's very hard.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So next question is, how to prevent human-animal conflicts?
Human-animal conflict. How to prevent? Look, population is growing and encroachment is also increasing. People are trying to push the line a little bit more towards the forest, and forests are also damaging. Like, if the animals are not getting enough in the forest, that's why they will move outside the forest. So the conflict situation will occur. And sometimes in cats, in tigers, when they become old, they are not able to hunt properly. They look for easy prey, so they come outside. And that doesn't mean that there will always be conflict. There are many NGOs like WTI, WWF, and local forest staff is totally capable of dealing with this conflict. Conflicts, I don't think it will stop totally. But we can be prepared for it. Like, what you need to do is, on a conflict situation, you need to call the local forest department. Call them, and they will come first. If they don't, try local organizations. They will come.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And thank you to all the participants. Thank you, Apur sir, and thank you, Venkatesh sir, for your informative session. Thank you once again, and thanks to all the participants for joining us. The feedback form link has been sent to the chat box. You can fill your feedback form from there. And the certificates will issued within 7 days. Oh, Venkatesh sir, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. Hello. 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 Thank you so much. I think now, should we log out, or there are some questions to be asked?
I will tell you the question. Can you please answer?
What is your question?
Like you, the trust. So how did you collect the blood samples? Blood makes you collect.
Your question is not clear. Could you please repeat? I'm getting some noise from your audio system.
No, like you mentioned that.
Yes,
Oh, is it clear?
I see your question in the chat.
Yeah, sir.
The study I cited was from, but it is not my paper. Well, I cited
Okay.
it was done by some Australian scientists of sample birds. They were
Okay.
they were captured from the stressed areas for stress markers. So I need to go into detail to find out what are their biases. Of course, there are biases. You are right. Once you capture the birds, you may get the stress markers, but they must have done the control also. The birds which are captured from the natural environment. So
Okay. I agree. Thank you.
thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I have a question from Abul, sir.
Yes.
Sir, how to stop animal poaching?
Animal poaching.
Recently, there was animal poaching in Kishanpur. Thunder Tiger was on Thunder Tiger. As I have seen a fence on his leg.
Yeah. Can you be more clear?
Sir, yes. How to how to stop animal poaching?
Animal poaching, I told you, as we need to establish these communities. We have to give them alternate livelihood, because why they do poaching? For money, because they're poor. If they have enough money, why will they do poaching?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, but recently, a few months back, farmers tried to poach the tiger.
What?
Sir, a few months back, farmers tried to poach a thunder tiger in
Yeah.
Kishanpur.
Yeah. This is my pain. I am here in Kishan, currently working on this tiger case. We're tracking it daily. And this is a very shy tiger.
Okay.
His movement pattern is very complicated. It's very simple actually.
Sir, in 2018, I have noticed that tiger first time in Kishanpur.
This thunder tiger.
Yes, sir. I have noticed him first time in the Kishanpur range.
Okay.
Sir, sir, and now some friends were there in the park and they have clicked the photos. So they found that there was a fence in his collar near his snout. There was. Sir, is he okay now?
I cannot talk about this, but let me tell you, we're working on this. Let's see what happens, because he's very healthy as for now. We have found 2 kills. Let's see, he's eating well, and he's doing his regular movements. And last night he traveled around, how much kilometer is that? 6 to 7 kilometers he traveled in one night. His movement is good. I don't know what will happen, man. We need to focus more. I was here for this presentation, but usually I'm always around this area searching for that tiger.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one last question.
Okay.
Sir, last time when I visited Kishanpur, I have stayed in FRH. So I have noticed one thing. There is a blackbird roaming there, and it is very. Sir, is it safe for visitors?
And
Sir, it
it's
is
a very,
inside the campus of FRH. Blackbird
this is very
roaming.
sad situation. He is no more, man.
He is no. How? Oh, what happened? What happened?
I don't know. I was in Belraya. Kishanpur, I don't usually visit because it's Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary. Dudwa is different. This whole is a part of Tiger Reserve. When there is a problem here, then only I come in Kishanpur. So I visited like once in a month. So I'm not very fully aware of the consequences, what happened, but it is sad. He tried to push me once, but what we can do?
Same here.
Mr. Vika, I have a question, if I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. So, recently, I've been reading a lot about the news. So, wherein, they were telling that these telecommunication towers are creating the radiation and which is harming the birds and especially the sparrows. And that is something like even I have observed in my native place. Like when I was child, like I used to see a hell lot of sparrows were coming into my courtyard and they were sitting on the porch and everywhere. But now I can see, the very less number of sparrows are there. I'm not sure what is the reason exactly, and does this really, this towers radiation really affected these birds?
It affects, but I'm not fully aware of how much it affects. There must be a paper on this.
I've been searching the news all over. And some of the news says like there is no record that these tower radiation has did any harm to any of the birds so far. There was a contradictory statements I have read, so I'm not able to reach to a conclusion. How it's really affecting or not. So do you have any view on this? What's your
Okay, what you can do is note down my mail address, mail me, and I will do some research and will conclude. I have to read some papers.
Of course, that would be really great. I believe like you have a better approach than me.
Let's see. I will give you my perspective.
I will. So can you read out your email ID? I will write it to you, or maybe your Insta or whatever, wherever I can reach you.
Insta, you can just reach on Insta. It's just Apoor, just _Apoor_.
All right. So, okay. One more, not a question, I would say, but curiosity you can call. So see,
Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. The time is getting so late, so you can ask him personally. Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
Anup sir.
Sure. No problem. I'll connect personally.
Yeah. You can contact him on his Insta account. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Still, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Anup sir. And thank you, Venkatesh sir.
Thank you so much and wish you all the best, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.